सत श्री अकाल मैं कोमल पत्रस PTN 24 ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਖਾਸ ਇੰਟਰਵਿਊ NDG ਕੋਰਦਨੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਮੇਅਰ Montgomery ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੋਸ਼ਨੀ ਪਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਲਾਕੇ 'ਚ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਫ਼ਰ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਮੇਅਰ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਕਿਹਦਾ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਨੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੇਅਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ
Good morning. Hello.
Welcome you to PTN 24.
Thank you for having me.
So we want to know about your journey. How did you start? Can you tell us how did you start the journey of to become a mayor, and how do you feel to be a mayor?
Well, I have been a journalist and an activist for many years, first of all. And I always covered things to do with human rights and social justice. So to me, this was sort of the next step on my journey. I'm 57, so it was a big step to take. But I felt that with the new party, Projet Montréal in Montreal, I found that my values clicked with theirs in terms of social justice, better housing, public transportation, the environment. And so I was approached by the leader of the party and was asked to run for mayor for this borough, and I agreed to do it, and I won. So here I am.
That's a good news. So congratulations for that. So, and we are also very happy to be a female mayor in Montreal and also in the borough. So can you tell us about how much is the population in your area?
Well, this is the biggest. We have 19 boroughs in Montreal, and this is the biggest, most populated borough. It's close to 170,000 people, and it's very diverse. Côte-des-Neiges is one of the most diverse areas, I believe, in Canada. We have people from all over the world living here, and many different languages, many different challenges in terms of employment and housing. So I'm really excited about working with the different communities and bringing everybody together to build a stronger borough.
So how did you feel that, since you know that there is a problem in the housing and employment, so how you feel that you will going to address this issue, and what will be your strategy?
Well, we have a lot of very strong community organizations in the borough, and they work with especially with immigrants. We have the Immigrant Workers Center. We have Projet Genesis, which works on housing. We have an organization called Komal. So there's many, and what they do is, like, unfortunately, many immigrants or refugees are taken advantage of here by landlords or employers. So one of the main things we want to do is with these community groups is teach people their rights when it comes to housing and when it comes to working conditions. And we have a very good mechanism in the city for complaining about bad landlords or dirty apartments. So we want to teach people how to do that, hopefully provide the information in different languages other than French and English. But we're also, in the most recent budget, we've put aside quite a bit of money to address unsanitary housing conditions here. So we are going to have 30 inspectors, so I think an increase of 13 inspectors who will go to these apartments, check in on the complaints. We have a lot of complaints about bed bugs, mice, rats, cockroaches, mold is a big problem. And to follow up with the landlords and to make sure that they provide clean and safe housing for everyone.
So that's very good news that you are going to improve this situation. But I just wanted to know more about that. what is the mechanism from the city to the organization, community-based organization? How you guys work together? So what was the mechanism? How did you work with them?
Well, I've since coming into office 2 months ago, I've met with many of them to exchange ideas of how we can work closely together and how I can support them. Many of these organizations get money from the city, or they do their own fundraising as well. So it's a question of communication and making sure that the information is available and that I know what they do, so that when we get calls to my office, I can refer people to the correct organization. But one thing people should be aware of is that we have very committed residents in this borough that really want to help. On Facebook, for example, I saw recently a message that a woman had arrived from Nigeria with 3 young children and had nothing. And by the end of the day, the residents had, just through word of mouth on social media, had managed to furnish her apartment, provide food and clothing for her kids. So it's that kind of helping community and supportive community.
So thank you so much for this question. But again, I got another point. While we were talking about the housing and the people, those who are having a right and enjoy the facility in the winter to have a roof on their head. So I'm thinking about the homeless people. What is your strategy and what kind of work? Do you have any shelters, or what is the benefit for that?
Yeah, lack of housing, the homelessness is a big problem in the city. We don't know exactly how many homeless people there are. There's a lot of hidden homelessness, especially in our borough. And that means that people may have a roof over their head, but it's because they're couch surfing, or in the summer, sometimes they sleep in their cars. So that's an issue because there's a lot of shame attached to being homeless. So we don't necessarily know where all the homeless people are. We do not have a shelter in our borough. There are shelters mostly downtown that we can refer people to. In the winter, when the temperatures are extreme, like -40, -30, our public transit system allows people to take shelter in the metro system. It's not ideal, obviously, but at least there's no danger to the person dying from exposure to the cold. So that's sort of a band-aid solution. The long-term solution is we want to create more social and affordable housing in the borough. So there is a plan to develop an area here. It's called the Hippodrome. It used to be a horse racetrack, and now the province has given us the land, and we are planning to build an entire, I believe it's 6,000 units. And what we want to do is focus on building not condos, like small condos, but something that would be attractive and appropriate for families. So sort of 3-bedroom apartments. We want developers, when they get their permits, to agree to build 20% affordable housing and 20% social housing into their projects. So that's going to be a requirement in order to get a building permit. So we're working away. We're working with some of the other community organizations that work on housing. Again, Project Genesis is one of them. One of the problems we're hearing about recently are landlords or building owners that are kicking people out in order to renovate their building and then rent it out to other people at a higher rate. We have to look at that to see that owners have the right to renovate their buildings, but we have to make sure that the tenants' rights are also respected.
Thank you so much. So, in terms of homeless and the people, those who are arrived newly, so do you have any mechanism or the organization in your contact or in your link, those who arrived newly, like immigrant, those who don't know about the culture and the values, especially for the language? Like in Montreal, the language is French language is a big barrier for those who arrive new. So how did you see that in your borough, that how you covered this problem?
Yes, well, we have, like I said, we have a lot of organizations. I just had a meeting last week with one that's called Komal. And what they do is they hold workshops with newcomers to teach them about their rights. They talk to them also about cultural differences here. And they have employees that speak, there's a number of different languages spoken at their organization. And that's just one that I know of. There are many others. So the important thing is, there's a whole structure of welcoming people when they come here. The Quebec government provides free French courses. Part of the problem there, or the challenge there, is to find places to hold the French classes. They provide the money for the teachers, but not necessarily the space. So in our borough, we have a big challenge with a lack of community space. So we have to look at that to figure out how can we address that. Could we do something with old churches that are no longer attended like they used to be? We have to try to get more imaginative about space. But back to the new arrivals, I think in general, I think there's a good network in this borough, both from the community organization standpoint, but also from residents of the borough that are very willing to help and to lend a hand or to donate materials or money to help people out.
So, it's a challenge at the same time. But the thing is that when the people arrived, so you can handle with the senior people. But I'm just thinking slightly about their children, those who come from the change is for them, it's totally a big massacre to just suddenly move to another place. So how did they continue their education, and even if they want to study in English? So how many schools we have in our borough? So they are in English or they are bilingual or the French. So just an idea.
Okay, well, the law in Quebec is that refugees and immigrants have to send their children to French school unless they have what's called a certificate of eligibility. Now that means that the parents were educated in English elsewhere in Canada. So me, for example, I had the right to send my kids to English school, even though I did send them to French, but they could go to English school because myself and my husband were educated in another province in English. So it's a bit complicated, but the reason they have that law, or we have that law in Quebec, is to preserve the French language. It's French is a minority in the country, so we need to take steps to keep it from being overwhelmed by English. That being said, it is a challenge for children entering the school system, and we do have an issue with space for schools. But yesterday, the municipal government announced an influx, like adding more money. I think it's an investment of 270 million into schools, into the French system. Now, I know it's difficult for kids, but as you know, kids are very resilient, and they are luckier than us older people in the sense they pick up a language very quickly and they adapt very quickly. So if you go to any one of the schools in our borough, you'll see very quickly that it's a mini United Nations. I mean, the kids are from all over the place, but also at that age, they don't see difference, and they all just find a way to communicate. And it takes a bit of time for some kids, and it is difficult if the parents don't speak French. But there are sort of after-school programs. There are places that they can get help with their homework. There's a number of very good organizations helping out with that too. So I think by and large, it's difficult for the parents' generation coming here because often they're working so hard at many different jobs, they don't have time to learn the language. So that is a challenge, and I know it's isolating for them. And that's something I would like to work on as well, is to bring a lot of the immigrant or refugees out of their homes, out of the isolation, because I know especially for women, it's difficult. But in terms of the kids, I find that it's that generation of immigrant that tends to do well because the parents sacrifice everything for their kids to succeed in Canada. So, you know, my hat's off to those parents that work. You know, a lot of them are professionals. They come here, their degrees are not recognized, and so they end up doing menial jobs in order that their kids can have a better life. And I think that's very commendable. And it's something that makes Canada super strong, actually.
Yeah, that's we know that Canada is the most, and especially Montreal is most diverse city in Canada. So just a little bit eye on the road situation. What's in the winter? What is the situation of the road? So how did you see that?
Yeah.
I know it's a difficult one, but just an idea.
Well, you know, we live in a northern climate. We live where it snows. So it seems every year people forget that and they all complain about the snow, but it happens every year. Some years more than other years. This year seems to be particularly difficult. It's been a long time since I've seen a winter, you know, I was born and raised here. So it's a long time since I've seen a winter where we've had such extreme low temperatures for an extended period of time. Sometimes we'll get low temperatures, but for a day or two. We've had pretty low temperatures pretty steadily since before Christmas. That's unusual. And this, we've had 43 centimeters of snow. That compares to storm of the century, we called it, in 1971, in which we had 45 centimeters. So, you know, every year is a bit different. I know that last year at Christmas, I was riding my bicycle. It was so warm. So we have to start thinking about, you know, climate change. A lot of this is due to climate change. So people have to think about that, changing their behaviors in terms of driving cars everywhere, using more public transit. A lot of people complain about the traffic, but at the end of the day, they are the traffic because they're sitting in their car in the traffic. So if we can get more people into public transit, by adding more buses, increasing the frequency of the subway. I mean, in other big cities of the world, like London, Paris, people, they don't drive, they take public transit. And I think we have to get away from our car culture here. It's very North American culture to drive your car just down the street or to take your kids to school. But we have to start thinking more active transit, walking, biking, public transit. So I know that the roads are frustrating for people in winter, but we're working as hard as we can to clear the snow, but it takes 4 or 5 days to clear this much snow. And especially when all the cars are parked in the way, they have to move so that we can clear the snow.
Thank you so much. So how did you feel to be a mayor? Like, since you tell us you were the journalist, you were the activist, and to all the journey and to become a mayor, how's your feeling?
Well, I really am enjoying it, this job. I'm liking it because it's a challenge. Every day is different. I'm learning so much, And I actually really like to be in touch with people and to get to know them. One of my biggest challenges is to stop being a journalist, because every time I meet somebody and they tell me a story, I think, oh, that's a really good story. That would be, good for a journalist. But I'm not a journalist anymore. So at least professionally, I can pass these stories on to other journalists. But I still find it fascinating to talk to people, to learn about their issues. For example, today a woman wrote to me and she's having real difficulty she has a child with disabilities, and trying to get that kid to their appointments and in this snow, and so you just realize that everybody has their personal challenges, and the thing I like about it is to find a solution to those challenges, to those problems. And so I'm having a lot of meetings with people who work here, the bureaucrats, to say, okay, we've got this problem, how can we fix it? And I'm sort of a person of action like that. And I'm used to producing a newspaper every day as a journalist. Things don't move as quickly as that in the bureaucracy, but I would like to find ways that we can make things more efficient and less frustrating for the residents.
So that's a quite inspiring story for us, to be a journalist, to be an activist, and now to be a politician. So any of the message you want to give it to the Montrealers, and especially for your borough?
Well, I think, we do. I think we have a lot. I think people feel there's a lot of things to complain about, and I don't disagree with that. There are a lot of things that we can improve, but I think we have to keep our eye on the fact we are extremely lucky where we live, and we live in peace. We have a thriving economy. I think most people, if they need something, their needs can be met if they ask for that. We have free health care. So I think we have to keep our eye on that and cherish it and be grateful for it every day. And you just have to look around the world and see that Canada is one of the few places left on the planet that we can say, we live in peace. So I think at the same time, we cannot take that for granted. We have to continue every day to work on that, to find a way for all our various cultures and backgrounds and languages and everybody to get along in a way that we can build a stronger, diverse Canada, because we are the envy of the world, I would say. I've lived in many countries, I've visited many countries, and there's nowhere else in the world I'd want to live other than Montreal. So even despite the -40-degree temperature, I actually like it. So I think we just have to keep keep perspective, keep things in perspective, and continue to work together. But I think also we have to recognize that I am one person. I can't change everything, nor can I change anything overnight. So, I'm asking people to help me, to work, to tell me their expertise, to offer suggestions, rather than just complaining. I would like to hear feedback from people about what can we do better.
Thank you so much for your time and for your help and information, which it's very useful for us and for the viewers, those who are watching it. So ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸ਼ੁਕਰਗੁਜ਼ਾਰ ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੇਅਰ ਦੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਟਾਈਮ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਇਲਾਕੇ 'ਚ ਜੋ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਨੇ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਰਵ ਕਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਣ। ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਮਦਦਗਾਰ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਮੌਕਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਚੱਲੇ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੇ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਮੁਸ਼ਕਿਲਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੇ ਉਹ ਹੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ, ਤੇ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਪਰੋਚ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੇ ਐਸੇ ਹੀ ਪੈਗਾਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ PTN 24। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ।